Welcome to Podnovation. In this episode, we'll talk about the real cost of not starting a podcast, what you're losing every month you wait. Everyone talks about how much it costs to start a podcast. Nobody talks about how much it costs to not start one. Every month you wait, you're losing leads, losing authority, and losing ground to competitors who already have a mic in front of their face. Now, this isn't a guilt trip. This is a math lesson. I'm going to show you exactly what's at stake. The first section I want us to look at is the leads you're not getting. Okay. If your podcast converts just 1% of listeners into discovery calls and you get 500 downloads per episode, that's warm leads per episode. At 4 episodes per month, that's 20 leads. At a 25% close rate, that's 5 new clients per month. Now multiply that by your average client value. If your service is $3,000, that's $15,000 per month you're living on the table. And if your service is even higher than that, let's say $5,000, that's about $25,000 per month you're leaving on the table. And keep in mind that this is every month. Now, every single month you don't have a podcast, you're losing money on the table. That's for leads. But the question will be, I don't have 500 downloads yet. Even at 100 downloads, the math still works because podcast listeners are high intent. These aren't cold leads. These are people who chose to spend 30 minutes with you. That's for the leads you're not getting. The second section I want us to look at is the authority you're not building. Your competitor who started a podcast 6 months ago now has 24 episodes of searchable, shareable content. They are being found on Google, Apple, and Spotify. They are being invited to speak at events. They are being featured in media. Authority compounds like interest. The sooner you start, the bigger the gap between you and everyone else who's still thinking about it. When a potential client Googles your name and finds nothing versus Googling your competitor and finding a professional podcast with 50 episodes, who do they trust? Well, if this is hitting home good, that means you're ready. Our agency can have your podcast launched in 30 days. Strategy, branding, production, distribution, everything. All you have to do is show up and record. Book a free discovery call right now. Link in the description, and let's stop leaving money on the table. So that's the authority you're not building. Okay. The third thing you're losing out on is the relationships you're not making. Okay. So what does that mean? A podcast is the ultimate networking tool. You're not cold DMing someone asking for a quick chat. You're inviting them to be featured on your show. That's a completely different energy and different approach. Every guest interview is a 30 to 60 minutes relationship building section, depending on how long your podcast is. But on average, it's about 60 minutes. Partnership, roles, joint ventures, and friendships come from these conversations. You invite someone in your podcast and you talk to them. And you can then say, okay, I would love to do this. I love your energy. I would love to invite you to come speak on my podcast. I'd love to invite you for this event I'm putting together, right? Relationship building. And guess what happens? Eventually, you start interviewing the people in your industry, and sooner or later you become a thought leader because the movers and shakers in the industry know who you are, right? Not just, oh, I'm popular. The people in the industry know who you are. And so you get networking gigs, you get networking events, you're building relationship via a podcast. Okay. Your guest list becomes your network. You can reach out to, you can DM, you can message whatever thing you're thinking of. Yeah. And it's not just, oh, I have contacts. These people actually know who you are because you've interviewed them, you've listened to them talk for about 1 hour. That's a long time. For example, a client who booked a 50K consulting contract that originated from a guest they interviewed on their podcast, right? And this happens because, we do business with humans, not necessarily. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the content you are not creating, right? Everybody talks about creating content. I think according to the 4 quadrants of Alex Mozi, getting leads, it's cold outreach, warm outreach, and content, and then paid ads. So that's cold outreach, warm outreach, content, and paid ads. With a podcast, you're actually leveraging the content and the warm outreach. Warm outreach is the guest, right? You're having on your podcast. If you have a podcast and your podcast is well aligned, most of the guests that come on your podcast, they're potential clients. So you don't have to like force sell them, but you cannot start having those conversations. And these people already trust you, kind of, because they've spoken to you for 1 hour. So it's not just like uh, a stranger out there. But for the content, right? With a podcast, you have content out there. Now, look at it this way. Without a podcast, you're creating content from scratch every single day. With a podcast, you're creating one piece of content that fragments into dozens. What do I mean? If you do a 30 to 60, let's say 60-minute episode, because that's like the average out there. Now, of course, you can do 30-minute episodes. But if you do 60-minute episodes, what happens is that that 60-minute episodes, can be turned into 4 different sections of 10, 10, 10 minutes, right? That's for 4 pieces of content. That 60 minutes of episodes can be turned into about 10 to 20 high quality reels. That's about less than 60 seconds out there. So that's if you're posting one reel every day on your socials, that's 20 days of content from just one episode. Now, that 60 minutes of content, inside it, you can still get different quotes to use as text and also different quotes to use on graphics, right? So you see that with this podcast, so you're active on YouTube, you have active on all podcast platforms where podcasts are distributed on, you're showing up on Google, you have content to post on LinkedIn, you have content to post on Instagram, depending on the social platforms you're active on. And you don't have to start making different pieces of content for all these other platforms. You just show up for 1 hour and do the thing, and you have content all over on the platforms. And people see you as a wow, this lady's dropping really solid points, not knowing that you're working smart and you're putting content out there. And with podcast and with YouTube and with Google and all that, with the podcast, the content is evergreen. So it's not content that goes and then it disappears. It's stuff that people can search and it comes up, right? It's searchable. People can find it. Now think of it this way. Most people spend about 10 hours per week creating individual social posts. What happens is that once they post the social post, it's gone. That's it. If it does well, it does well. If it doesn't, you move on. So like you're kind of in a hamster wheel. Well, with a podcast, you can spend about 2 hours per week recording a podcast that generates 60 plus content pieces per month. That allows you to be consistent on your socials for about a month. Now, keep in mind that you're doing 4 episodes in a month. So imagine how many pieces of content you can get from that. So the question isn't you working harder, producing less, and reaching fewer people. No, the thing is that you're working smarter. You're still working hard, but you're working smarter. You're reaching more people, and you don't have to do that much work. But if you don't have a podcast, what you're doing is you're working harder, you're producing less, and you're reaching fewer people. Right? So the question is you're already working hard. Why not just leverage it and work smart? Okay, so we've looked at the cost of not starting a podcast. Putting it all together, you're losing on leads, you're losing authority, you're losing relationships, you're losing content efficiency, right? That's a massive invisible cost when you put all of that together. Your time, with losing leads, you're losing money actually. With losing authority, you're losing money and you're losing connections you could actually make. With losing relationships, you're losing networking and all that. So many things that even though I can't put a price on it, that's really, 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 really expensive. With content efficiency, you're losing, you're getting so much overwhelmed that it's affecting the other work you do, and you're not showing that to the best of your ability. You're losing time, you're losing energy because things you're doing so much work, but you're not getting a high return. You all know this as a business owner that business is all about leverage. And so the thing about business is asking the question, how can I make more leverage? And that's where, like employing people, um, investing in companies is that how can I get more leverage? So with content, with podcasts, it's like, okay, how can I get more leverage? Now, 6 months from now, you will either have about 24 episodes working for you around the clock, or you'll be watching this video again, wishing you had started today. And the best way to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The, the second best time is now. The only question that matters, if your competitor launched a podcast tomorrow and you didn't, how would that feel in 12 months? The best time to start a podcast was a year ago. The second best time is today, and we make it easier than you think. Book a free discovery call with my team. No pressure, no obligation. We'll talk about your business, your goals, and whether a podcast is the right move for you. And if it is, we'll show you exactly how we'll build it together. Link in the description.